Good afternoon, and welcome. Oh, that's a great warm welcome, and I'm not even in the show. I'm Vanessa Thomas, manager of the Performance Plus program here at the Kennedy Center. Thank you all for joining us for our lunchtime look-in featuring the Phantom of the Opera. If you have not already seen the production, I hope you will. It is here through August 12th, and the performances are selling out, so if you do not have your tickets already, be sure to get them soon. This lunchtime look-in is just one of the dozens of programs presented by the Performance Plus series as part of the education arm of the Kennedy Center's education department. We are responsible for the adult programming, and we do dozens of programs each year. We do open rehearsals, lectures, workshops, and master classes, often with the artists who are participating in the Kennedy Center season, In addition, we have Performance Plus Online. This afternoon's program, as you can see, is being recorded for Performance Plus Online. So please keep us in mind in the future. There are very, very exciting things in the works for the 2007-2008 season, including an evening with Jerry Herman on September 20th. I hope to see you all at future events. We are pleased and honored to have the three lead actors from the Phantom of the Opera with us this afternoon, along with our moderator, Scot Reese. Mr. Reese is on the faculty at the University of Maryland College Park, teaching directing and musical theater, among other things. His theatrical credits include productions from Los Angeles to New York. His television credits include daytime dramas, situation comedies, variety specials, commercials, and an Emmy Award for individual achievement in performance. So please join me in welcoming our moderator for this afternoon, Scot Reese.
Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so pleased and proud to be here today because we have three Phantom of the Opera stars here today, and I'm going to bring them out right now. We have Marni Raab, who plays fabulous Christine. Mr. Greg Mills, who plays Raoul. And Mr. John Cudia, who plays the Phantom. So before we start out, how many people have seen the Phantom already? How many people saw this Phantom here? Okay, you've seen him tonight. Okay, great. To start out, I have to tell you that I saw the Phantom again last night, and I was sitting next to a 5-year-old, young 5-year-old girl. And she had already listened to the CD. Her sister was 11 years old and is doing musical theater. I thought, well, is a 5-year-old going to be able to sit through, 2.5 hours of the show? Roughly. She was just amazed. She was riveted, depending on the night. And her question was, well, why can't Christine like both Raoul and the Phantom? Why can't they all just live together at the end? And so we'll talk about that and many more questions. So I thought instead of me reading everyone's resumes.
I don't like it at all.
No, not a good idea. No. I thought that we could start if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, some of your career highlights, and what brought you to the Phantom.
My name's Greg Mills. I grew up in Florida. I went to Florida State University. Moved to New York about 9 years ago. Other shows I've done, I was just in The Woman in White. Well, not just, it's been about a year now since it closed, but that was Andrew Lloyd Webber's last musical that he wrote. And we were on Broadway for about 5 months.
Was that your first Broadway show?
That was, first one. So I did that, and then this has kind of been my 1.5 years of Andrew Lloyd Webber, because I did Woman in White, and then I went and did Che and Evita, and then Jesus and Jesus Christ Superstar. And then I got this. So this is 4 Webber shows in a row, so he's keeping me busy.
Yeah.
But, and came out here and actually started out as, I was in the ensemble, started in October, and I was the Raoul understudy. And then in the last 2 weeks of Toronto, which we were in Toronto for 4 months before we came here, I took over as Raoul. So then I finished 2 weeks there and then started here. So this is kind of my official opening city as Raoul. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
And how many of you seen him do Raoul? Pretty good, huh? Amazing. Big fans, big fans. And for Marni?
My name is Marni Raab, and I'm from New Jersey originally. Went to school out in Ohio, Oberlin Conservatory. And I've been associated with Phantom on and off since 2001. I started off in this touring company, and then I did the world tour in Southeast Asia, and we played 4 cities there, which was very fun. And before that, I did Cats in Germany, and then I've kicked around in some regional theater. I did My Fair Lady and Carousel and The Fantastics. That was fun. Yeah, that's about it. This is my first time in DC to perform. I've never performed at the Kennedy Center before, and so it's fun to be here.
And they love our weather.
Makes my hair frizzy, but
John?
I'm John Cudia, and I'm also from New Jersey. I grew up in a town called Toms River, New Jersey. And I got involved in musical plays and the band in school. I played percussion, was a drummer and a singer also. And when I was 17, I saw a show called Les Miserables. I don't know if you guys have heard that. And
how many people have seen Les Mis? All right, there we go.
me too.
How about like way back Les Mis, like 1994 Les Mis? Anybody?
Oh, we got some.
All right, that was me. I was there. No, and I fell in love with the show, and that was really when I decided that what I wanted to do was take my love for music and, aim myself towards the theater. It was because of that show. I went to college at Fordham University at Lincoln Center in Manhattan, and was a theater major and studied voice in New York privately. And almost immediately after college, was very fortunate to get a couple of auditions and a couple of very important meetings with the people involved with Phantom and Les Mis and Miss Saigon. And about a year after I graduated, I got the opportunity to audition for Les Mis and got the show. So that was in 1994, and since then I've really been back and forth between Les Mis and Phantom, the New York companies of Les Mis and Phantom, and this company of Phantom. This is the only tour I've done, and also my first time in DC as a performer.
Great.
Long and short.
Now, the way that's going to work today is I'm going to start out by asking some questions of our fabulous guests, and then we have microphones on either side, and about half an hour in, I'm going to have you guys come up to the microphones and any questions that you would like to be able to ask the Phantom cast. I want to start out with, can you tell us what it's like to audition for Phantom of the Opera? Like, how do you find out about it? What do you prepare for it? Do you dress up? Do you wear street clothes? How many people are there? What's it like? We'll start with Greg, and then we'll
Sure.
go to Marni.
Thank you.
Since I guess we're the latest person in the cast, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways. There's open calls, there's chorus calls, there's equity principal auditions. Myself, I had an appointment through my agent, and those are much more specific. They tend to be when they're definitely looking for somebody. My situation, they were looking for an ensemble member and a Raoul cover.
What does that mean, cover?
The understudy, so if I were out sick or on a vacation, then there's normally 2 understudies for all the major principals. One of them, they rotate them in and they do the show. So basically, for us, or for me specifically, probably for them as well, but I started out with my own song, something appropriate for the show. I try to dress, you try to dress the part.
Wear that.
You can wear that.
You could wear this.
Okay.
I think I wore a sports coat or something, something kind of nice. But and then after that, they had me sing from the show, do a little
Like
scene,
they gave you
scene
music
work.
right there and said,
Yeah, actually, through my agent, I had it ahead of time. There was this kind of a cut of All I Ask of You,
Okay.
just kind of a solo version of it, and then a little scene that you do with the casting person and the directors that are there, and just spend time with them, and from there you may get another call back, and they may have you do it again. Mine was just that one day. They kind of did everything at one time. But I don't know if it's the same with you. And
Well, mine was a little different than that. Right after I graduated college, I went in and auditioned. I went in on an open call, and
how many, was it in New York?
It was in New York.
How many ladies were there at that open call?
Well, gosh, that was a long time ago. There were a couple hundred people there, and you have your few minutes. You know that you sign up and they give you a little card with your time on it, and you come back. You know, you sign up early in the morning and then you come back later in the day, 10 minutes before your time, and they line you up in your little group, about 8 people or so, and you go in one at a time and you sing your song. You sing your short song. They want it to be about 32 bars, which is usually about 2 pages of music. So if you have some long song, just cut it down or sing something else. And they asked if I knew Wishing You Were Somehow Here Again, and I said, oh, of course, because I saw the show when I was a kid and I loved it, and I was really excited to be in auditioning for it. And so I took out my music, and of course they already had it there. And, so I sang a bit of that, and they said, okay, thanks, bye. And I didn't hear anything. But apparently my name wound up on some list, because 6 months later they called me back in, and this time for an appointment, and I didn't have to go at 6:30 in the morning to sign up for the time and do the whole thing. And they called me in about every 6 months for the next 3 years. And always, I've got to know them. They're so nice, and we'd make some jokes, and I'd read a scene and sing a couple of songs, and they'd say, okay, thanks. And I wouldn't hear you. And so then, right, and one time when I auditioned for them, I got a phone call, and they offered me cats, because they had passed my name along to the cats company in Germany, I guess, and so I auditioned for Phantom and then got an offer for cats, and I thought, are you sure? But I guess that's how things work.
Memory. I don't remember that.
That's right. I don't remember singing that. But then finally, several years ago, I went in and had my last audition, and it was at the theater in the lobby at the Majestic, and I sang through everything again. And that a couple of days later, I got the call with the offer, and I went, well, finally.
Were you nervous when you were singing at the theater knowing that you might get the role? Or had you done it so much?
Well, by that point, I actually did go in that day and think, I cannot believe they're calling me. And again, after all this time, and I thought, if I don't get it this time, I don't think I'm going to go in and audition for them again, because it's just, I don't know what they're waiting for.
Yeah.
You know, either. So maybe that was a change in my demeanor or something, and maybe this time there really was something available.
Gotcha.
You know.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
A lot
you
of
never
times
know.
there's just really nothing. That's
And it just doesn't have much to do with you. Well, it has a lot to do with what you do in the room, but then of course there are a lot of other factors that we don't get to see because they're happening behind the scenes.
Right. Exactly. You can't be taller than the Raoul.
That's right. Or maybe there's a set of costumes and they need to, wow, the brand new set of costumes is for somebody who's a little bigger or smaller than you are, so they're just going to hire that girl so they can put her in, because the set of costumes is so expensive, and if they have to start making a new set, then they need to hire somebody who can just slip right into those clothes.
Really
so.
puts that ego on the back burner, doesn't it? When you show them
Yeah.
and say, oh, all the costumes fit.
Right, right.
It is. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of preparation, obviously, that goes in. But you know, being lucky or being in the right place at the right time, as they say, can be a lot about those things that you have no control over. And that's what you prepare for. Is you prepare for the time when the stars align in that particular fashion, because you never know when it's going to be.
And you have to be able to deliver
Yeah.
when you're called upon to do so. So you have to be ready.
Yeah, I mean, and for just a little bit of background, the casting directors, like around the time when I was graduating from college, there were really only 2 or 3 casting directors that are hired by producers to bring in people to be seen by the directors of the individual shows. And at that time, there were really only 2 or 3 really big casting directors. And for instance, Johnson Lift Casting was a big name, and they cast Cats, Les Mis, Miss Saigon, Phantom, Jelly's Last Jam. I mean, at that time, it was like almost every show on Broadway was being cast by this one company. So like what happened with Marni with Cats was similar to what happened to me. I went to an open call for Miss Saigon while I was still in college. And I was not a member of the Actors Union at the time, so I couldn't sign up and get a time. I had to wait all day until every equity member was seen. And then they said at the end of the day, we might get to some non-equity people. And there was a separate sign-up sheet for non-equities that I was, I think, 10th on the non-equity list. So after being there, I got there at 7 o'clock in the morning, signed up on the non-equity list. I came back at 12 o'clock to see how they were doing, came back at 2 o'clock to see how they were doing, came back at 4 o'clock, and they said, okay, at 4:30, we're going to see the first 10 non-equity members, and that's it. So luckily, I was 10th on the list. And they said, we only have time for 8 bars.
Which is like the last 4 notes of your song.
It's basically it's go in, sing what you think. Yeah,
sing your high note.
Sing your note and go.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, geez, I'm so perfect for Chris. I have to sing the end of Why God. And I went in and I sang the end of Why God, and they said, well, we're having a call back down the street at the theater. At the time it was the Broadway. And they're teaching a combination. Can you go there? And I was like, yes. So I ran down the street at 4:30 where they were already teaching the combination to people that they had called back earlier in the day. I learned the combination, went through the rest of the audition, and the casting director, one of the casting directors, basically said, who are you? And
don't you know?
Because I had nothing on my resume, and I was non-equity, and I said, well, I just came from the open call, and he said, do you have an agent? And I said, no. And he said, well, give me a call at the office later on. And I gave him a call at the office later on. His name was Ron LaRosa. And Ron said to me, you're not going to get this job, but we cast Les Mis and Phantom. And I said, yes, I'm aware. And he said, in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have you come in for those 2 shows. And I could not believe it. So, waiting all that day really paid off. So I auditioned for Les Mis, auditioned for Phantom, ended up getting Les Mis. And then a couple of years later got seen again for Cats and for Phantom, and then ended up getting the road company of Phantom as a swing, which a swing is somebody who understudies everybody. And I also understudied Raoul, and I did that for 9 months, and then started playing Raoul. Basically everything from then on kind of happened from the inside. So I was the understudy Raoul, who then became the Raoul and played Raoul for a number of years with this company and in New York. And then started understudying the Phantom, and then when that job was available, I had another kind of inside audition, if you will, for that, and then started playing Phantom. So it's a long story.
No, it's good. It's been over 10 years.
I guess the whole point of that was just how things happen sort of on the inside in some respects. It's a very small community of casting directors and actors.
And wouldn't you say, I think from all of your stories for people that are interested in going into the business, it's, I guess they say luck is preparation and where opportunity meets, that you always audition, no audition is a bad audition as long as you do your best.
Right.
And if you're just looking for yeses and kind of forget the no's, your egos aren't as bruised,
Yeah.
and just keep going forward positive. And you guys are all case in points of that, it seems, and you all started out very young.
Yeah.
What kind of training did you all have for this? We just naturally, because in Phantom, the vocal demands are so rough. You also have to dance as Christine. I didn't see you guys do as much dance, but there's probably stuff that I'm missing behind the scenes.
It's movement.
Exactly.
I have to move well.
Right.
Yes.
And there's beautiful scenes in it also, so you really get to exercise your acting chops. So what kind of training did you all have?
Greg?
Great.
Thank you. In college, I mean, this was something I never thought I was going to do. Like, even in high school, I just never did theater. And I took it as an elective because I needed, some sort of arts elective thing. So I took drama. Yeah, easy A. And no, I really enjoyed it. But and then I wound up, when I went to Florida State, I was a vocal major. So I was mainly doing, legit stuff, more so opera. But, and then started taking the acting classes in college and switched over and was a music theater major. And then at Florida State, with that, I had to have a whole bunch of dance experience. So I was taking ballet and jazz and
You
tap.
started that all in college?
Yeah,
Okay.
I started in college.
And you
So
said he's a good dancer? Okay.
yeah, well, I was the, for Woman in White, the Broadway show, I was the dance captain.
Okay.
For that show. So I've been dance captain for 3 different shows.
Wow.
So yeah, I used to dance. I tap and stuff like that. But mainly I was a vocal major in college first, and then I switched to music theater, and that was it was great to combine the acting and the dancing with it. So.
Okay, Marni.
Well, I started taking acting classes when I was 10 years old because, and I had already been asking for 3 years before that. So my parents took us to see shows. Annie, I think, was one that kind of put me over the edge. Gosh, that's... Yeah,
80?
How many folks here know
What's that?
Annie?
79,
Oh.
80
Okay.
Yeah.
on Broadway.
Oh, 79. Oh, yeah, I guess so. Oh, gosh.
Awesome.
Anyway,
When was Sarah Jessica Parker? Or
Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Andrew
Did you
that's
see
it. I don't know who I saw, actually, but I just saw
I've
a
been
girl
played
in a
by-
red wig. I thought that was pretty fabulous. But anyway, I sang all the songs from Annie, and I just loved it, and we had a chorus line memorized and everything. So I thought, well, I need acting and singing lessons too, and my mother said, you're nuts, you're 7, you can't do that. So by the time I was 10, I took acting and then voice lessons because they got tired of me singing around the house because I couldn't match pitch on the piano or anything. I just couldn't sing, but I really, really wanted to. And so...
So
and
they
then,
were preserving their sanity.
right, they were preserving their own sanity pretty much and saying, well, she does need voice lessons because we can't stand it anymore. And then I continued to study, and I was leaning more towards opera and doing little community shows throughout my teens. And then I went to college and I did opera. And it was like a very, I don't know if you know Oberlin Conservatory, but it's very classical, it's, so it was an opera track. And I thought, well, I'll be an opera singer. And then after I graduated, I did some small opera jobs and wasn't really that pleased with them. I didn't have as much fun as I did with the music theater jobs. So I just thought, well, gee, it's such a difficult field. If I'm not going to love all of it, all of the work, then I better do something that I am going to love. And so musical theater is it, and that's what I fell into. Yeah. So and I pick up classes along the way in dance and in acting, and I still study with my voice teacher. There's always stuff to learn. I learn so much from my colleagues too. Whenever I work with people, I just try to absorb what they do because they're the best teachers as far as I'm concerned.
That's great to hear. And John?
I didn't do any kind of formal acting or singing training until I got into college. Everything that was mostly just for fun was high school and community theater. And the way that I really spent my time up until college was playing the drums, and that was the singing was something that I kind of just did around the house. My mom and dad listened to all different kinds of music, so there was classical, there was show tunes, there was all sorts of stuff. I was a huge Barry Manilow fan, so I was always, memorizing and doing that, singing that stuff.
I love Barry Manilow too.
It's
Me
it's
too.
a New
How many
Jersey
closet
thing.
Barry Manilow fans do we have? All right.
But it makes perfect sense. I mean, not when you're a 10-year-old, but the songs, they're such individual, like, monologue story songs. And so just as a kid to, like, memorize these stories, and then just your imagination just starts to go, and you really kind of get into these songs almost like they're scenes from musicals. And I really didn't see that until later, but I think that's kind of where it got started, is that finding the place where your imagination and music kind of comes together. And that's why I think I really ended up enjoying it so much. But Fordham was a straight acting program, was a theater performance major, did all sorts of technical stuff too, lighting design, sound design, stage management, and acting. But I was introduced to my very first voice teacher by another student at Fordham, and I just absolutely loved him. And we worked together for about 2.5 years, and he was a very, very, very kind, very gentle, very loving man who said at one point, "You're done with me. You need to find somebody else." And I looked around for a really long time before I found a relationship that worked for me in a similar way. and helped to kind of take me to another level. And that relationship also kind of played itself out after a while. But voice lessons was started at 19, and probably the last time I studied like really, really regularly was between the last, gig here was the last time I was home for any stretch of time. Then I would go regularly. But I still keep in touch with my voice teachers, and if I have things that questions or anything, I'll get in touch with them. But
because I think with a show like this so demanding, you're doing 8 shows a week and you're touring, so keeping your bodies and voice healthy is probably a big commodity.
It is, and I think probably one of the trickiest things is to avoid falling into habits that will lead you down a road that could be damaging. Mm-hmm. Sometimes over the course of a week, as you're just getting tired or fatigued, sometimes you might, just as if you have one side of your one leg that gets sore and you compensate with the other one without knowing it.
Your back out.
And it's a very similar thing. You fall into patterns vocally and physically that over time might really be hurting you. So a lot of times when we touch base, even with each other or with our teachers, it's about trying to discover ways around healthy singing. So we need to get back to make sure we haven't set up a bad precedent.
Can you guys talk about the rehearsal process for, I'm sure it'll be different from each of you because you came in at different times, but can you talk about how you start out? Do you read around a table since you all come to the project at different times, and then do you get up on your feet, and how does that all work?
Great.
I'm in the first chair. I'm sure it's definitely different for all of us because when I came in, some people, because the tour's been running for so long, 15 years now.
Mm-hmm. It's also now the longest running show on Broadway, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 18? 20? Is it already 20? Wow. It's up there.
Coming on 20.
People know.
19?
19.
Okay.
20's next, though.
Yeah.
Right after that.
Because they had all just turned 20. So.
Yeah, that's right. So I had basically a week when they were teaching me. I was just with the dance captain and one of the assistant conductor, and he would teach me music. So I learned all my music first, and then this was for my ensemble track, and then I learned all the choreography like Masquerade, all that, and just blocking with the dance captain and assistant dance captain. And then after a week, sometimes you get 2 weeks. Some people have had 3 days when they rehearse a part. Like one of the new people, we had a ballerina that came in and had 2 days of rehearsal, and they throw her in the show. And so it's really fast.
She survived. She keeps it going.
Yeah, she's great. She went on last night. She was terrific.
Yeah. Just like a baby, they find their way back up to the surface. Check them in.
Yeah, so I spent that first week, and then they have like a little put-in where they'll bring the majority of the cast in. Right. Sometimes the principals don't show up, but the other understudies will fill in for those roles.
I'm sorry, did you say don't show up?
We didn't show up. No, we're not called.
No,
oh yeah, they're not called.
We just decide.
But
screw 'em.
But you'll do it in your track. You'll be the only one in full costume. You're doing all your changes.
Which is awkward when you're doing Cats.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Everybody else is in their rehearsal clothes and you're in Cats. Sorry, interrupted.
So and then after you put in for that, then I was in the show, and then while I'm doing the show, I was rehearsing the Raoul stuff, and then they'll have a separate put in for that where you perform that dressed up, and everybody else shows up and fills in. And then when I switched over, I didn't have any other special rehearsal or put in because I'd done the show as an understudy about 20 times. Okay. So they just put me in.
Great.
But
Marni?
Well, I joined as one of the ensemble tracks with a Christine understudy. And so I learned my ensemble track. I had a week to learn the track. And then I went in the following week, and in the meantime, I was being taught the Christine stuff. And it took about 2 months to learn the rest of that. And then I had a put in again with the rest of the company. And then I had some more rehearsal because my put in was a little rough. And then I didn't go on for a while. Are you making fun of me?
No, not at all.
Okay. I didn't go on for a while because with Christine, it's unique because there are actually two principals who are contracted to play that part. Right. There's the principal Christine, and then there's the Christine alternate who does 2 shows out of the week. So I do 6, and then Sarah Lawrence does 2 shows. And also, we cover each other. So we're each other's first cover. Okay. So for the shows I'm not on, I stand by for her, and vice versa. So the understudy doesn't go on very often. Because that's the extra girl, that's in case somebody goes over on an ankle or something like that. So I just hung around and didn't go on for a while and was happy in my ensemble track. And then when people went on vacation, I would go on. So that's about it. There you go.
John?
The rehearsal process for me was different at the beginning because I was the swing and I understudied everybody, and that took forever. That was adding 1 track at a time. Over a series of months, and then going on for those tracks as I was ready.
So I'm just always amazed by the swings. I can understand understudy where you're learning, but learning all the roles and depending on the day. And
the swing thing is it's a real specific frame of mind. Yeah. It's a very strange thing to do. But I knew I was only going to be doing it for 9 months no matter what. It was a temporary replacement. So. But the Raoul and the Phantom rehearsals were different. We did, with Phantom especially, we started out just by sitting around the table, myself and our director, executive producer, Peter Van Meyerhauser, and stage manager and conductor, and we really just talked. We talked character, we talked script, we talked interpretation, we talked a lot about what happens here because the show's been running for so long. We talked a lot about what other people did versus what is sort of required in the role in terms of blocking or, I don't want to say gestures, but that kind of choreography. Some things that are specifically choreographed versus things that are not specifically choreographed.
How much leeway do they give you on that?
I was given quite a bit. I feel very fortunate in that way. I think it's... I think they're very, very interested in the spirit of a moment as opposed to what you're specifically doing. Unless, like for instance, I was looking at that picture, that floating falling, that's a choreographed piece of the show that will be there till the end of time. Right. So that kind of thing is written in stone. But in terms of how I get to that moment, let's say, is more up to me. Than given to me specifically. So then from that point of just talking about it, we go through the learning of the music and then taking that and putting that on its feet to where I'm told basically here's the lay of the scene, and again, certain things are specific. You begin here, you end here, and then getting from that point to that point is something that I'm allowed to discover over time. And then there's rehearsals with understudies, and then an official put-in rehearsal as well.
It is interesting because many of the rehearsals are without the other cast members around. So since we all do go in at different times, we don't have the luxury of all rehearsing together. So at his rehearsals for Raoul, in the scenes where there are, the manager's scenes where there are a lot of people on stage, you'll have the stage manager and the assistant stage manager running around and trying to be the other people. Yeah. And then maybe you have one other cast member who's there with you while you're learning blocking. So the put-in rehearsal is really a big deal because that's the first time you have the full company on stage there, and it's really... It's sometimes like, so this is the real traffic pattern. Right, yeah. So this is
I
really
can't go
what
that
it's going to
way.
be. I can't go there because there's a person there.
Yeah, specifically.
And another part of the process that we get to do is we get to trail the person who's playing the role. So I was Ted Keegan was playing the Phantom at the time, so I got to trail him twice, I think. So once is really for watching him and the costume changes and the traffic patterns.
And this is while he's doing the show?
While he's doing the show. Right. And then the other part of that is...
And where do you watch that?
You're really following right behind. You just basically shadowing the performer, dressed in black, standing in the wings, following the different changes. Okay. And then the other part is just watching the show from the front. And sometimes if you're in the show, you don't get to do that. But you, depending on your role, for instance, I'll probably never get to watch the show until I'm out of the show. But if someone were to be having a put-in for Raoul, they would be able to be rotated out. This was one of the other understudies to watch the show or whatever. So That helps a lot in terms of creating a picture. It doesn't necessarily help you with the nuts and bolts, but that's something you have to.
And when you're first doing the choreography of the show, is it in a rehearsal hall? Because you don't have, there's so many pyrotechnics and there's so much magic going on with it. So sometimes the first time that you're on the boat is
The first time.
okay.
Sometimes.
Think of that.
Yeah.
A lot of
maybe they'll
times,
let you-
I'm sorry. In a theater like this, you might have a space like this where you can rehearse.
Right.
But sometimes not.
But you're still not going to actually
No.
get.
No, you're
No.
not going to get pyrotechnics and
No, you won't have
lights.
the pyrotechnics, but you will, like the first time in the boat is the first time, is what you said before. They'll allow us to like sneak in at 6:30 and go and sit in the boat and try to practice getting up, because that's something for Christine is difficult to
Costumes.
have to manage with the costumes, and you have to
Hair.
look graceful when you're getting up off the floor in a 40-pound dress. You know, you can't look like you're getting up and carrying 40 pounds with you.
And how much is the
So-
wig?
Oh, I don't know. It's kind of heavy, but it's not. Yeah, it's
Not
not
too
that
bad.
bad actually.
She's got a small
You're
head.
used to dealing with all that.
That's right.
Have you noticed a difference in audiences? Because you've, I'd like to start with you. You've done this internationally, and have you guys done it? Okay, so is it?
Well, Canada.
Oh, yes, exactly.
That's right.
Blame Canada. Is it different with the audiences there, and depending on
Yeah.
how much English they? How was the
Yeah,
reaction? What
it
was
was amazing actually. We had side titles or subtitles or super titles depending on which theater we were in.
can you tell the countries that you were?
Oh,
at?
right. We played Shanghai, then we went to Seoul and Taipei and Hong Kong. And we were in each city anywhere between 2 and 4 months, and then we would have a break in between for anywhere between 2 and 4 months. Shanghai was interesting because people spoke probably the least English there. And also the cultural style, they didn't respond the way we respond here. The show is geared towards, I suppose, punctuation marks, if you will, of applause. You're geared to applaud at the end of a song.
And they
There's
do that with
there's
lights, too. There'll be a
opportunity,
light bulb,
right? There'll be a
so-
light change, or we'll do a big finish, and you sort of know, streetcar. You sort of know
when
you're
the jazz
supposed to
hands
clap,
come out, you're
right?
supposed to. Okay.
You know, clap.
Remember that jazz
And-
hands?
Jazz hands.
Clap.
and we don't think about that here because it just happens. It happens organically. But over there, they didn't clap at the ends of songs, and we thought, oh no, we're bad. What happened? But apparently, we spoke to some people, and they said, oh no, that's rude. We don't want to interrupt you. So they would go crazy at the end, but they just
Because they had
culturally
that
they
pent-up
didn't.
emotion.
Right, and they were enjoying it. Everybody said that they really liked the show, but they just wouldn't clap at the ends of songs. Were they not being sincere? Is that what you're laughing at?
Just love you.
Thanks, I love you too. So it was. I had too much coffee, so they're making fun of me a little bit. But that was interesting to see that, and then we had probably less of that when we got to Korea because there was more of a Western influence there than there was in mainland China. So the applause was something that we were more used to. It's more similar to here. But in Korea, they were so excited and they cheered like they were at a rock concert. That was great. We loved it. So it was really a juxtaposition from China. Well, I had to work a little air guitar and think. But they screamed and they were very animated and excited. So that was fun. And in Hong Kong was very much like here, just what we're used to in or Western European style. Taipei was kind of a mix. We were impressed that they understood English a lot in Taipei, and we could hear that because with the super titles and the titles on the side, the reaction to the line is delayed because they're reading. So you have a line that is going to get a laugh, but the laugh doesn't come until the next line. So they're laughing. Wait for it. Right. But you can't wait for it. You just have to keep going. So that took us a little while to get used to as well. But it's just really interesting.
How about, John, you've done so much in New York. Is there a difference with New York audiences as opposed to?
Well, the New York audience is, I'm going to say this like it sounds like a bad word.
They're not from New York,
It's
right?
a tourist audience. And so you don't know really on a daily basis what the makeup is going to be.
But probably not a New Yorker.
Probably not. I found that the audiences around the country are much more vocal, much more responsive than they were in New York. And this is in general, doesn't matter what role I was playing. Generally, the audiences in New York don't stand up as much after the show. So that's,
Do they sing a lot? And if this gentleman was behind me, you probably should get some voice lessons, but I apologize. He was singing the entire score as you all were doing it on stage.
That's most.
Did you guys get a lot of that?
My aunts and uncles.
My dad.
Okay.
I don't have any family members who do that. Well, not that I know of, anyway.
Yeah. So I don't know. You're not able to hear that on stage, of course, because you have the orchestra. But it's that kind of thing. And you go. Do you turn around and ask them? I would kind of like to hear them do it more than y'all behind me. And I was wondering if sometimes you get choruses of people. It turns into a Rocky Horror Picture Show, but.
No, it kind of depends on the theater too. Some places were like the stage is right on top of the audience. Like in Philly, we were just like so close.
Oh wow!
And then there's other theaters that it's definitely
We feel so far away from you guys that
yeah,
here
it's
in
a
the
little
theater.
further back here.
It's fine. It's just an adjustment in each
but with the
venue
heat,
we
it
play.
might be a good thing.
The heat, you don't want to see us sweating so bad, but
Yeah,
the
it might be.
space is so big here. Plus,
Yeah.
then there's a little bit of a separation from the pit, so
It's really like a Broadway house, so you're
it's big here.
more like a Shubert style house. What are your favorite moments in the show for each of you?
John,
Thank you, Greg. I like the whole last 20 minutes is my favorite. I like from the coming out in the Don Juan or the Point of No Return till the end.
Okay.
That's fantastic. I love that.
All right. And Greg, since Marty's.
I'm drinking, sorry.
the end is definitely, it's just very exciting, and I enjoy doing the rooftop. That's a lot of fun, and the manager scenes, I think, for me, that's fun because it's complicated. And there's a lot going on, and that's kind of a fun scene to do, the manager scene. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Save the dressing room, you got them all.
I know, and then you have your whole part. He likes his job. It's good.
I like my job.
I'm still new.
We'll ask him 6 months later.
Yeah, right.
I have two favorite segments. I think I like the final layer scene. I just think that's a nice culmination of each of us three main characters pursuing the thing that we want, and it's all coming to a culmination there. And the music really swells to support that, and I just think that's very cool. Yeah. And also, just for my character journey, wishing you were somehow here again is a nice kind of a point of where she changes direction, and it's a growing up point. I'm not being very articulate all the time.
Do you find that is, because I get to listen to that every night. I'm standing, right up behind her, and it always fascinates me because it seems like it's almost its own show, that song.
It's a very strange song there in the show,
But I mean, it's like the
journey,
first time when you really kind of, you talk about your father at the beginning, and it's just one of those things that it seems like its own piece about those feelings and that
Yeah, I agree.
thing.
That whole thing.
And it really narrows down on the audience. You just see it so narrowing down. It's a new piece of scenery, everything about it. It's a huge plot point. So it is a gorgeous part of the show.
Yeah.
And- I'm going to already open this up to the audience. So we have mics on either side of the stage. So if you have a question, and we're having the lights come up, you can ask a question, but you're going to have to come down to these mics here so we can take. So bring yourself up and move over there, young lady. Exactly. And over there, young
Questions for
man.
Greg?
Exactly.
Right. We're taking
And we'll
questions
start
for
with this
Greg.
young man. If you can tell us who you are.
Yes, my name. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Jamil Jackal, and I have two questions. As I'm sure that there's a lot of very talented, very qualified people out there that want to get these limited jobs.
Right.
And at some point, you have to make a career decision. Was there ever a point where you said, well, I'm gonna go into drama, into theater, whatever it takes, or I'm gonna go this other route that I know for sure that I'll do well. I mean, of course you're here, you're doing well, but there's thousands of people out there trying to make that career decision. And then my second question is, based on the experience you have had, how do you see is the ethnic composition of the musicals, or overall, the drama? Is it more like, oh, we're gonna do Martin Guerre, let's look for French people, or we're gonna do My Saigon, let's look for Asians? I mean,
Right.
can you give us
You
some
mean
feedback on that?
Diversity in theater.
Is it really wide open casting? Just to address that second part, I don't get the sense that it is a completely wide open field in terms of we're just going to do a show, and you know, and who shows up and who we see is who we're going to. I don't necessarily see that happening, but I do think certainly the situation has improved in terms of there being people being clear about if a role is a role, you know, as opposed to it having to be a certain ethnicity. I think that people are getting much more open to accepting, you know, talented people in roles regardless.
And in the 70s, there was a program called the Non-Traditional Theater Casting Project through the Theater Communications Group, TCG, which addressed this problem.
Right.
So diversity would be more inherent on stage. So in the 70s, there was a big push for that. And it really depends on the director of the project, too, I think.
It does.
In the breakdowns, there are they'll specify when they say a role is open to any ethnicity. Sometimes they actually say that, and so please, you know, any ethnicity is welcome. Or if they're looking for a certain one, they'll tell you. Yeah.
And the first part of the question was, did any of you may have to make that choice of I'm going to do this or
Correct.
be an accountant?
I mean, I think it all depends on yourself. When I went to New York, it's very uncertain when you go there, and you know, you just have to explore, you know, go to as many auditions as you can, see how things turn out. I've had friends that have given up the business because it just didn't, you know, they didn't work as much as they wanted to, or just didn't fulfill them as much as they had hoped. You know, myself, I want to start a family soon, and so there's a lot I'm trying to accomplish financially, performance-wise, career-wise to accommodate for that. I've been so lucky, you know, lately that things have been going well. But I mean, there's definitely you hit slow points. You hit times when there's just not a lot out there.
Did either of you guys, like any of you, give yourself out of college, I have to be here in 3 years or 5 years, or I'm going to get out of the business? Because I know a lot of friends were like, I'm giving myself this many years.
Yeah.
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah.
You were all lucky. But.
Yeah.
I just rolled with it. I didn't give myself a definite set of marking points, but I would just see how I was going, and I've taken other jobs in between that are, I call them civilian jobs, even though, you know, even though of course we're all civilians here anyway, no matter what we're doing. But I find that if I've been unemployed for a while, I do start thinking about what else I can do.
It changes too. I mean, when I was 22, I didn't allow myself to entertain the idea of doing anything else. I don't know if it's just I never had that point of saying, all right, well maybe I should have something to fall back on. It seemed so clear in my mind that was Les Mis was the show and I was going to do it, period. And now I don't think that way anymore. But in some respects, sometimes I think I wish I did still think that way, because I think it does drive you in a sense that you don't allow other options because you can't imagine doing something else.
Yeah, I have trouble.
Take another question over here. The young lady.
Hi.
What's your name?
Pam.
Hi,
Hi, Pam.
Hi. I know you all have done different shows, and there's costume changes and makeup. Does that change? I know it probably changes from character to character, but how long does that really take? And do you get used to it? Because I know it can be chaotic and stuff, but do you get used to it, and how long does it take?
Well,
Marni,
you're the.
you're the-
Well, my makeup can take about 10 or 15 minutes now because I'm used to it, like what you said. The costume changes, they are so great with us. They push us around, and my changes are so fast, most of them, that
you have really
it's
fast.
not really my responsibility. All of a sudden there are 4 other people around me, and I just kind of stand there like this, and you run off stage, and then and then they push you back out.
And you guys know they also have a wardrobe crew behind stage, and they also have quick change places back. They don't have to go. Some of yours might go all the way downstairs.
Yeah, I don't need to go and lift my 40-pound thing and zip myself into it. There are people who do it, and they're so wonderful, and they're so good at what they're doing that it's really a load off my mind. I don't
You
have
always
to think
make them
about
your best friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tip your dressers.
Tip your dress.
Good.
Yes.
Come over here.
Hi there.
What's your name?
My name's Sue,
Hi, Sue.
and I'm here with my young cousin Krista, who's 14, and she actually came out all the way from Michigan just to see, pretty much to see this. She's a big fan of the theater. And
This today or
this today, and we saw the show on Sunday.
I hope they were
And
good.
We weren't disappointed.
Oh, good. Okay.
And And so there's not a lot of opportunities like this in Detroit where, like the Kennedy Center puts this on. Obviously, there's a lot of kids here, which is really cool. And, she's one of 6 kids, so there's not a lot of money for voice or singing lessons and things like that. And so, what advice would you give to just a regular kid that doesn't have the benefit of all the, the stage moms and all this kind of stuff? Can you still make it in the business, and what advice would you give?
Well, I think both of these guys never started till college, right?
Yeah. Church and school.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, the 90%, I think of people that work in, I know this is where I grew up, and that were the church organist or led the choir, have experience in voice and theater. And they'll work at the church, they'll work at community theaters, or they'll be associated with the school drama programs as well.
Band and chorus.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There's
we had
always
church theater as well.
And you know what I find too, that because I teach theater, a lot of the students that started too young get tired by the time they're a sophomore in college because they feel like they've done it all. And the ones that have a more world experience and then come to it like they did, all of a sudden they want to do it. They're not burned out.
I didn't even experience the whole stage mom stuff like that until I moved to New York. And I actually, in between jobs, going back to the first question, when I wasn't performing, I worked at a rehearsal studio, an audition studio. I used to be one of the kind of managers there. And we'd have these kids coming in to audition, and you see all these stage moms, and I'd never experienced anything like that. The kids that had all the schooling, and there's millions of them,
and now they have TV shows about it.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, the gentleman here.
Hi, I'm Alfred. And
Hi, Alfred.
I was just curious, what are your favorite musicals and performers?
My favorite musical is South Pacific. My favorite modern musical is Les Mis, but probably all time is South Pacific. I'm a fan of singers. I could rattle off some names, I don't know, but David Carroll and Larry Kurt, and people that I listened to when I was just starting to study. So,
Marnie?
I love A Little Night Music. I love that show. So I guess that's my favorite one.
Sorry, John Wright.
John Wright.
Oh, he's
John
great.
Wright.
Yeah. And as far as favorite singers, I just am always looking for. I love listening to people who have wonderful phrasing and who are inspiring. There are so many of them. There really are. I just discovered Jane Monheit. I really like her, jazzy.
For me,
Anyway.
Audrey McDonald.
Yeah, she's
ahead.
great.
Probably my favorite show is probably Sweeney Todd. I like it. It's dark and creepy and good music. My favorite performer is John Cudia.
There you go. Good. Young lady?
My name is Catherine Patterson. I had 2 questions. My first relates to getting into character, especially for you, sir. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. John. Your character is an incredibly complex person. He loves this woman, and he's incredibly compassionate at times, such as when you're singing music.
I'm just going to write this down as you're could use the help.
And yet, at other times, he's so full of rage to the point where he'll even kill a person, and then at the end of the play,
he's not acting.
Watch it.
At the end of the play, he shows such sorrow. It to the point where I myself was crying just because you can feel this pain. How do you get into such a character?
Well, part of the trick is, and this is in no way, shape, or form to thank you very much. I don't want to take away from your experience from the show, and that is the primary goal is for you to have that experience. And I don't want to say the trick to it is, but in a sense, I really don't have to go through all of that. And I think it'd probably be much harder job to do on a day-to-day basis. What I have to do is I have to find really simple things that I can identify with on a daily basis that I can play. They're, we call them motivations or things along that line. And I keep them really simple. And what I hope is that by trying to have those things that I'm going after, things in life that I really want, in some respects, I look at Marni and I think, I just really want her to understand me. It would be just so wonderful if she could look at me and she could really, really see who I am. And it's very simple. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? It's a very simple idea, but that's what I try and do. Is I think it can be that. It can be it could be a kind of possession of her. It can be motivated by a jealousy of him. It can be very simple ideas that help you get into a character that you have to play every day. So that's you know, the simplest answer I can give you is that to keep it simple is the way to do it.
I think what he's saying too is the reason you get such a reaction is, as an actor, more specific that you get in your actions and your objectives, the more universal it is, as opposed to the opposite.
And if I really wanted you to feel sympathy for me, I probably couldn't do it, because I have to look at it in sort of the opposite way. Can't look at it as trying to get you to feel. You know, I have to do something, and then I hope that what you feel is a response to that action.
Great.
Do you have part two? I'm sorry.
Good. Mm-hmm.
My other question was, and this is really for all of you, if you could change something about the story, because it really is very tragic. If you could change something about the story, what would you change?
That's a good question. Well, I love that the 5-year-old who was sitting next to you last night who said, well, why can't they all just live together? I mean, I have to say that never occurred to me before.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't thinking about that. But I love that she came up with that. And I don't know what I would change.
There you go. I'm going to let them ponder this, and we're going to take the next question, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Young lady?
Yeah.
She's a pro.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, my name is Catherine Kennedy, and I have 3 questions, if that's okay.
We're going to take one because we're almost out of time.
Okay.
Pick your favorite.
When John has to put on the stuff for the mask, does it itch when you put it on?
Good question. That's what I wanted to ask. Good
Yeah, it's. I don't know if you can see it now, but it's very likely that I have a ring that goes all the way around my face and around the back of my neck from the glue that holds on the wig cap and prosthetics. And over the course of a week, that line gets redder and redder and itchier and itchier. So yeah, by Sunday, it's really driving me up a wall. Absolutely.
Good question. Young lady.
My name is Hillary. The Phantom is obviously such a powerful piece, and like one of the main themes that people see is love and loss. But I was wondering if, like, from your perspective, since you guys have been in the show so many times, is there something you've learned from, is there another underlying theme that you found just in the story in general, or something you've learned from your characters, like something different, like from your character or from a different character?
Well, I mean, because I already sort of touched on it, for me, a lot of people call it love, but I do think it's about when you see in another person a reflection of who you are, of who you believe that you are on the inside. And I think that's a very universal thing, is that you come across that other person and you see something in them that says, yeah, they get me. They understand me.
And for Raoul, he kind of goes through, there's a lot of maturing that he does in the show, from starting to finish, from being just kind of this guy out for a good time, sort of, and just enjoying himself, to becoming somebody that can support her and protect her.
Mm-hmm. I think that a theme in the show will change, and discovery of self-discovery and learning how to love, and the different styles and different manifestations of love. Christine deals a lot with the love of her father and the loss in that, and then having to replace that vacuum or fill that vacuum with a mature or sophisticated kind of love, and something that's maybe as profound but just different from father-daughter love.
And then I just wanted to know, do you guys have a favorite character?
You know what, we're going to come back to that because we're almost out of time, okay? Young lady.
Hi, my name's Laura, and it seems like you guys have to spend a lot of time together. So how well
Does it really seem like we do?
We don't know each other at all.
Well, how well do you guys get along?
hate him.
It's really, really good right now.
Yeah.
There's an old saying, when you're on the road, when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, you got to look at them. And it can get like that because you spend so much time with people. Right now, it's fantastic.
It's like a family, though, isn't
Absolutely.
it? I mean,
Really.
and think of your family. You're going to have fights. You're going to have times that you enjoy them. Yeah. Yeah. And this is going to be our last question because we're out of time.
Hi, my name's Amanda. I was just wondering, what are your opinions about the characters you play? Because I would just imagine that there'd be a lot of things to go through to get into character and stuff. So when you're playing that character, what do you think about the character you're playing?
I try not to have an opinion about her, like to judge her. I try to just to get the things that she's trying to get. And I suppose if I sat and analyzed her, like as a separate, as if Christine were a person, then it might be difficult to play. I might try to play something that was a result. Do you know what I mean by that? To try, similarly, I suppose, as what John said about trying to get somebody to feel something, that's not possible to do. I can't make you feel something. I can just do something and generate some sort of response in you. And I think that kind of falls into the same category as if I really look at Christine as a person, then I might judge her and then have more trouble just playing the simple, okay, she wants this, she's going to do this to get it.
Before you all leave, I want, is there anything that you've always wanted to ask the audience? Any questions that you've always had about anything in the show? The works, doesn't work, questions that you have about?
Do you know that Raoul's the old guy in the beginning? Yes. All right.
You do. Because when my in-laws came and saw it, and they had no idea. They're like, oh, we thought we saw you in the auction scene. You were the guy holding the monkey. It's like, no, I was the guy that kept calling Raoul sitting in the wheelchair.
Good. Anything else?
I got nothing.
Good. Hey, well, I just want to thank John, Marni, and Greg for just a wonderful lunchtime look-in for Performance Plus.